You know, sometimes the most pivotal moments in history are packed into just a few short sentences. That's exactly what we're looking at here. We're going to break down just 5 verses from Matthew's gospel, but wow, do they pack a punch. This is a moment where a political crisis, a prophet being silenced, actually triggers the fulfillment of an ancient promise. It's the story of how a brilliant, great light finally dawned in a place that had been sitting in darkness for a very, very long time.
So, where does this story begin? Not with the grand celebration or a miracle, but with this really stark, kind of ominous piece of news. A voice has just been silenced. John the Baptist, the one who was preparing the way, has been thrown in prison. And that one event right there sets everything that's about to happen into motion. It is the trigger for a massive shift in Jesus' ministry.
So let's really focus on that catalyst for a second. The entire narrative we're about to explore hinges on this one critical event, the imprisonment of John the Baptist. This isn't just some historical side note. It's the very hinge on which the door to Jesus' public ministry in Galilee swings wide open.
So Jesus hears the news and he acts. But to really understand why he does what he does, we first have to get a handle on the arrest itself. See, this wasn't some random act of violence. No. This was a calculated, targeted move by the regional power, a ruler by the name of Herod Antipas.
Okay, so who was this Herod Antipas guy? Well, he was the local authority, the son of the infamous Herod the Great. As tetrarch, he was the ruler of Galilee. But let's be clear, he was ultimately under the thumb of Rome. He was the face of political power in the exact region Jesus was about to make his new headquarters.
And that brings us to the million-dollar question. Why was John arrested? Well, it all came down to a head-on collision between morality and power. John was out there publicly calling out Herod for his marriage to Herodias. Why? Because Herodias was the wife of his half-brother Philip, who was still alive. This was a flagrant violation of Jewish law. And John's message? It was direct, it was blunt. It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. Now, Herod himself might have been a bit reluctant, but Herodias, she was furious. She wanted John silenced. And it was her pressure that led Herod to imprison John in that formidable fortress of Machaerus. Just like that, a prophet's voice was snuffed out for speaking truth to power.
So with John now off the stage, Jesus makes his move. But listen, this is not a retreat. It's not him running from danger. As we're about to see, this is a highly strategic, deeply prophetic relocation. Let's dig into why this move was just so important. The moment Jesus hears that John is in prison, he leaves his hometown of Nazareth. And this isn't just, a change of address. He is deliberately shifting his entire base of operations. He's moving from the quiet, almost forgotten inland town where he grew up, right into the center of the action.
And his destination is incredibly specific: Capernaum. Try to picture it, a busy, bustling fishing hub, right there on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. It's a crossroads, a center of commerce, a place just teeming with people and energy, a world away from the relative quiet of Nazareth.
And this, of course, raises the big question, right? Why there? Out of all the places in Galilee, why set up shop in this specific town? Was it just a practical choice, a nice place to live, or was there something much, much deeper going on here? Turns out, in this story, geography is theology.
And this is where the whole story pivots. We move from just a historical event to a breathtaking moment of prophetic fulfillment. Because Jesus' decision to move to Capernaum awakens a promise that was made centuries earlier by the prophet Isaiah.
Matthew connects all the dots for us. He quotes Isaiah directly. And listen to this prophecy. It speaks of the lands of Zebulun and Naphtali, the exact region where Capernaum was located. It promises that a people sitting in darkness, in what it calls the region and shadow of death, will see a great light.
This is just brilliant. Look at how perfectly it lines up. On one side, you have Isaiah prophesying hope for this specific geographical area, Zebulun and Naphtali. On the other side, you have Matthew showing us Jesus moving his ministry to that exact area. Isaiah talked about a people in darkness. Well, this was a region that had been historically beaten down and afflicted by foreign powers like Assyria. And then Isaiah promised a great light. And Matthew's claim is absolutely breathtaking. Jesus is that light. His arrival in that place is the fulfillment. This move was anything but random. It was destined.
But to really feel the full impact of this moment, we need to understand what that darkness actually meant. I mean, why was this region described in such stark terms? The answer is hiding in its nickname: Galilee of the Gentiles.
So let's look at the context here. This region was a total cultural melting pot. It had a long, painful history of being overrun by foreign invaders.
It was a major crossroads for Roman trade, which meant it was filled with a mix of Jews and non-Jews, the Gentiles. And because of all this, the religious establishment down in Jerusalem often kind of looked down on it. They saw it as compromised, maybe spiritually dim. In a lot of ways, it was on the fringes of proper Jewish society.
And this is the whole point, isn't it? Jesus deliberately kicks off his public work not in the holy city of Jerusalem, the center of religious power, but here, in overlooked, marginalized Galilee. The message is absolutely revolutionary. The great light of the Messiah wasn't just for the pious and the powerful, it was for everybody, and maybe especially for those who were sitting in what the world considered darkness.
So let's just recap the flow real quick, because it's such a perfect chain of events. You have a dark political act, the imprisonment of John, that serves as the catalyst. This prompts a very clear response from Jesus, a strategic relocation to Capernaum. And that very move becomes the direct fulfillment of an ancient prophecy, bringing light to a land that had been living in the shadows for far too long.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? This whole story is about hope dawning in the most unlikely of places. It's about a great light appearing precisely where it was least expected. So the question for us, I think, is where do we see that same pattern today? Where does hope, where does understanding, where does a great light show up in the overlooked, the marginalized, or the forgotten corners of our own world?